At 0320 on December 13, 1981, Dr. Helena Wojcik sat in a freezing basement apartment in Gdansk, Poland, watching her stolen Soviet Electronica MK52 calculator display a string of numbers that could save 10,000 lives. This was not an ordinary calculation. The room was silent, except for the distant rumble of tanks moving through streets above. The temperature was -8 degrees Celsius. Helena had 90 minutes before Soviet-backed police would begin mass arrests of Solidarity movement leaders across Poland. She needed to encode and transmit 47 warning messages to underground cells before dawn. She reached not for the telephone or radio transmitter, but for a mathematics textbook from 1952. 43 years old, 19 years teaching cryptography at Gdansk Technical University, zero experience running an underground resistance network. The communist government had just declared martial law at midnight. Solidarity leaders were being hunted. Phone lines were tapped, radio frequencies monitored. Every traditional communication method was compromised. Helena had one advantage the secret police didn't expect. She understood prime number theory better than anyone in Poland, and she'd stolen a Soviet military calculator 3 weeks earlier from a drunk KGB officer in a Warsaw bar. If you like stories like this, true moments where human instinct quietly changed the course of history, consider subscribing. Back to Helena. The Solidarity movement had exploded across Poland in August 1980. 10 million members. Shipyard workers, teachers, priests, students. First independent trade union in the communist bloc. The Soviet Union was terrified. By November 1981, Moscow was pressuring Poland's government to crush Solidarity completely. Intelligence reports indicated martial law was coming. Mass arrests. Military crackdowns. Communications blackouts. Solidarity leaders needed a way to coordinate resistance when traditional communications failed. They needed encryption that couldn't be broken by Soviet cryptographers. They needed something simple enough for factory workers to use, but complex enough to fool KGB cipher experts. Helena had been approached by Lech Walesa's advisors in September. They knew her reputation. Top cryptography researcher in Poland. Published papers on number theory that even Soviet mathematicians couldn't fully understand. But Helena wasn't a political person. She'd never attended Solidarity meetings, never signed petitions, never spoken against the government. She was a mathematician who wanted to be left alone with her equations. The advisors told her what was coming, showed her classified documents smuggled from government offices, explained that without secure communications, Solidarity would be decapitated in the first 48 hours of martial law. Helena spent 3 days thinking. Then, she said yes. Soviet cryptography in 1981 was sophisticated. KGB signals intelligence could break most civilian encryption within hours. They had computers, trained, mathematicians, decades of experience intercepting resistance communications across Eastern Europe. Any encryption system Helena created would face immediate attack by experts who knew every standard technique. Codebooks could be seized, radio frequencies jammed, couriers arrested. She needed something completely unexpected, something that looked like random noise to Soviet analysts, something that could be implemented with equipment available in any Polish apartment. The solution came from an unexpected source. October 28, 1981. Helena attended a mandatory university reception for visiting Soviet educational advisors. 3 KGB officers in civilian clothes. Everyone knew what they really were. One officer, Major Dmitry Volkov, had too much vodka, started bragging about Soviet technology superiority, pulled out his Electronica MK52 programmable calculator, military issue, not available to civilians, could perform complex calculations and store programs in memory. He demonstrated its capabilities, showed how it could calculate artillery trajectories, left it on the table when he went to the bathroom. Helena stole it, slipped it into her purse in 5 seconds, walked out of the reception 10 minutes later. She studied the calculator for 2 weeks, discovered it had 60 steps of programmable memory, could perform scientific functions. Most importantly, had a pseudo-random number generator used for military simulation exercises. That random number generator was her weapon. Helena's breakthrough was elegant simplicity. She wouldn't use traditional encryption. She'd use mathematical steganography, hiding messages inside apparently random numerical sequences. The method worked like this. Convert Polish text to numbers using simple substitution. A equals 01, B equals Jo2. Use the calculator's random number generator with a specific seed value. Embed the message numbers inside a longer sequence of random numbers following a pattern only the recipient would recognize. The pattern was based on prime number intervals that changed daily. To Soviet cryptographers, intercepted messages looked like random number lists, equipment test data, accounting figures, meaningless noise. To Solidarity members with the right calculator program and daily seed value, the messages decoded perfectly. Helena couldn't operate alone. She needed people who could use the system, people who understood basic mathematics, people brave enough to risk imprisonment. She started with her graduate students, called them to individual meetings in November, explained what was coming, asked who would help. 17 students. 12 volunteered immediately. 3 declined politely. 2 reported her to university authorities as a security concern. Those 2 students probably saved her life. By reporting her, they established her public profile as a harmless academic under investigation. When martial law came, secret police assumed she'd already been neutralized. They didn't prioritize arresting her. Helena trained her 12 volunteers over 3 weeks, taught them the encoding system, gave each person a calculator, stolen, borrowed, or purchased through black market contacts, created protocols for message pickup and delivery. Each volunteer would be a node in a network. They'd encode messages from their sector of Gdansk, pass them through dead drops to other nodes, who'd relay them across Poland. The system had no written instructions, everything memorized to prevent seizure. If someone was arrested and interrogated, they could only reveal their small piece of the network. December 1st, 1981. Helena ran a test, encoded a 12-word message, passed it through 3 nodes, had it decoded 40 kilometers away in Sopot. The message transmitted perfectly. Decoding took 8 minutes with the calculator, fast enough for operational use. She reported success to Solidarity leadership. They gave her an operational codename, Matematik, the mathematician, told her to prepare for full activation within 2 weeks. Helena spent that time expanding the network, recruited 23 more volunteers through trusted contacts, mathematics professors, high school teachers, engineering students, people comfortable with numbers and capable of memorizing complex procedures. By December 10th, she had 35 trained operators across northern Poland, each with a calculator, each knowing the encoding system, each ready to activate when martial law came. They didn't wait long. At midnight on December 13th, Polish military forces moved into position. Tanks in major cities, soldiers surrounding Solidarity offices, communications blackout implemented, phone lines cut, radio stations seized. At Euro 100, mass arrests began. Solidarity leaders pulled from beds, union offices raided, anyone on government watch lists detained. Helena received warning at Euro 230, a whispered phone call from a sympathetic police clerk before the line went dead. They're coming for everyone. Warn who you can. She had maybe 90 minutes before her apartment was raided. She activated her network, encoded 47 messages. Each message named Solidarity members in immediate danger and provided safe house locations. She embedded the messages in sequences that looked like university-grade calculations. She couldn't transmit by phone or radio, both monitored. Instead, she used the old method. Dead drops. Helena walked through snowy Gdansk streets at Euro 330, dropping encoded messages in pre-arranged locations, under a specific bench in Oliwa Park. behind a loose brick in the Old Town wall, inside a broken phone booth near the shipyard. Her network operators collected the drops every hour, decoded the messages, passed them forward to the next node. By 0600, warnings had reached 9 of the 11 priority targets. 9 Solidarity leaders went into hiding before arrest teams arrived. 2 were caught because they didn't trust the random numbers message and stayed home. Helena's apartment was raided at 05 Famav, but she wasn't there. She was encoding messages in a church basement, working by candlelight because the power had been cut. When police broke down her door, they found only books and empty coffee cups. Over the next 2 weeks, Helena's system became Solidarity's primary communication method. With phones down and mail censored, the number-based encryption was the only reliable way to coordinate resistance. But Soviet intelligence noticed something. They intercepted messages containing suspicious numerical sequences. Too regular to be random. Too frequent to be coincidence. KGB cryptographers began analysis. They recognized it was some form of encryption, but couldn't crack the method. The numbers followed no standard cipher pattern. Major Volkov, the KGB officer whose calculator Helena stole, was assigned to investigate. He examined intercepted messages for 3 days, concluded it was a sophisticated system, possibly computer-generated. He never suspected his stolen calculator was the tool encrypting every message. Soviet cryptographers requested 6 weeks for full analysis. Helena had that long before the system was compromised. She needed to evolve faster than they could crack it. Tomasz Kowalski was 23 years old, Helena's best graduate student. Photographic memory, could perform complex calculations mentally, had been arrested twice for solidarity activities before martial law. He saw a limitation in Helena's system. It worked for short, urgent messages, but couldn't transmit the longer communications Solidarity needed. Articles, reports, coordination documents. In January 1982, Tomasz proposed an expansion. Use the same mathematical principle, but apply it to printing coordinates for underground newspaper distribution. Tomasz's innovation wasn't better encryption. It was using Helena's numbers as coordinates for secret printing locations. Communist authorities had shut down all independent newspapers. Solidarity publications were illegal. Possession carried 5-year prison sentences. But underground printing continued. Small operations, basement printing presses, mimeograph machines. The problem was coordination. How do you tell distributors where to pick up newspapers without police intercepting the information? Tomasz's solution was brilliant. Encode GPS-style coordinates using Helena's calculator system. The numbers that looked like random data actually specified building addresses converted to numerical coordinates, floor levels, apartment numbers, pickup times encoded in the sequence pattern. A typical encoded message, 47.392, 18:615, 33.8, 19, decoded to 47 Robotnicha Street, 18th building entrance, 6th floor, apartment 15, 3:30 p.m. pickup, 8 newspapers available, arrive in 19 minutes. Soviet intelligence analyzing the numbers saw meaningless data. Solidarity distributors with calculators saw precise instructions. By March 1982, Tomasz had recruited 67 distributors across Poland. Students, priests, factory workers, each with a calculator and encoding knowledge. The network produced 14 different underground newspapers. Total circulation, 80,000 copies monthly. Every copy distributed through Tomasz's coordinate system without a single shipment intercepted. The communist government knew underground newspapers existed, but couldn't stop distribution. They'd raid one location and find it empty. The pickup had happened 3 hours earlier, based on encoded coordinates they couldn't decipher. The network evolved again. Started using layers, numbers within numbers, allowing secure communication between cells who didn't know each other's identities. If one cell was compromised, they couldn't reveal information about others because they literally didn't have it. May 1982 brought disaster. Soviet cryptographers made a breakthrough. After 4 months of analysis, they identified the prime number pattern in Helena's encoding. They still couldn't fully decrypt messages, but they could identify which number sequences were likely communications versus actual random data. KGB began targeted surveillance. Anyone carrying suspicious number lists would be arrested and interrogated. Calculators were banned from public spaces. On May 18th, Tomasz was stopped at a checkpoint. Police found a calculator and encoded message in his backpack. He was arrested, taken to interrogation headquarters. The interrogating officer demanded he explain the numbers. Tomasz claimed they were astrophysics homework. The officer didn't believe him, threatened prison, threatened his family. Tomasz made a desperate gamble. He offered to decode the message if they let him use the calculator. The officer agreed, thinking he'd expose the encryption system. Tomasz entered the wrong seed value deliberately. The decoded output was gibberish, complete nonsense text. "See," Tomasz said, "just astronomy calculations. Your people are paranoid." The officer studied the output, couldn't determine if Tomasz was lying or if the message really was innocent. Cryptography wasn't his expertise. After 8 hours, they released him with a warning. Kept the calculator, told him to stay away from solidarity activities. Tomasz immediately changed all network protocols. New seed values, new prime number patterns, new encoding method that was even harder to detect. The close call had forced evolution. The system became stronger. The network went completely dark for 3 weeks to reset. Solidarity leadership feared it had been destroyed, but it was actually being rebuilt from the ground up with improved security. By 1988, Solidarity had survived 7 years of martial law. The movement was stronger than ever. The communist government was collapsing economically. Strikes were spreading. Helena and Tomasz's network had evolved into the primary coordination system for resistance activities across Poland. Over 200 trained operators, encrypted communications reaching every major city. In August 1988, Solidarity planned the largest coordinated strike in Polish history. 16 cities simultaneously. Over 400,000 workers. The operation required perfect timing. Strikes had to begin at the same moment, or government forces would crush them individually. Traditional communications were still monitored. One intercepted message would compromise everything. Helena and Tomasz coordinated using their calculator network. Encoded messages specified exact strike start times for each city, target factories, and shipyards. Backup plans if primary locations were blocked. Communication protocols during the strike. On August 15, 1988, at precisely 0600, strikes began simultaneously in 16 cities. The communist government was overwhelmed. They couldn't suppress multiple strikes at once. Military forces were spread too thin. International media covered the coordinated action. The government offered negotiations. For the first time since martial law, they recognized Solidarity as a legitimate organization. Those negotiations led to the Round Table Talks in 1989. The talks led to semi-free elections. The elections led to Solidarity winning 99 of 100 Senate seats. By December 1989, communism in Poland had collapsed. The calculator network that started with one stolen Soviet device helped coordinate the movement that ended communist rule without civil war. Helena Wojcik continued teaching cryptography at Gdansk Technical University until 2003. She published 23 papers on encryption theory. None mentioned her Solidarity work. The calculator system was classified by the new Polish government. Records were sealed. Helena was asked not to discuss operational details publicly. She received the Order of Polonia Restituta in 1995. The citation mentioned significant contributions to Polish independence, but specified nothing. Tomasz Kowalski became a mathematics professor, published a book in 2011 titled Applied Number Theory in Constrained Communication Systems. Chapter 7 described a theoretical encryption method using programmable calculators without mentioning it had actually been used. The original Electronica MK52 calculator is now in the European Solidarity Center Museum in Gdansk. The placard says, "Calculator used in underground communications, 1981 to 1989. It doesn't mention it was stolen from a drunk KGB officer. Major Dmitry Volkov retired from KGB in 1992. He never learned his missing calculator had helped destroy the Soviet Union." In 2019, Polish computer scientists analyzed Helena's encoding system using modern cryptography tools. They concluded it was elegantly simple and effectively unbreakable without the seed values. The system worked because it wasn't sophisticated. It was unexpected. Soviet cryptographers looked for complexity. Helena gave them numbers that looked boring. Sometimes the most powerful weapons against tyranny aren't guns or bombs. Sometimes they're stolen calculators and the courage to use them. If this story moved you the way it moved us, do me a favor, hit that like button. Every single like tells YouTube to show this story to more people. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're rescuing forgotten stories from dusty archives every single day. Stories about mathematicians who freed nations with nothing but numbers and brilliant thinking. Real people, real heroism. Drop a comment right now and tell us where you're watching from. Are you watching from Poland, United States, Germany, United Kingdom? Our community stretches across the entire world. You're not just a viewer, you're part of keeping these memories alive. Tell us your location. Tell us if someone in your family resisted oppression. Just let us know you're here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for making sure Dr. Helena Wojcik and Tomasz Kowalski don't disappear into silence. They helped free a nation with stolen technology and mathematical courage. They deserve to be remembered, and you're helping make that happen.